Welcome, Iowans for Freedom. There's so much going on. I don't really know where to begin, but I think I'll begin by sharing this video. Now, this is a video of this is a video from April 26th. This is when the vaccine passport ban was introduced to the Legislative Hearing Committee. There were about 100 people there. They were shocked at how many people were there, but with everything we know now, I mean, we have all the protests, all the things, the mandates, the people being discriminated against, people being coerced into getting these shots. Hundreds of people showing up at protests. We've had a couple with some hundreds of people, and then Iowans for Informed Consent in conjunction with Iowans for Freedom and other groups that have joined together. And now we have other medical groups that are having these huge turnouts at hospitals. I'm going to go over to the one at Broadlands today. But had all of us showed up, had 1,000 people showed up, maybe they wouldn't have passed the bill as it was. I want to share this audio with you because there were so many of us that spoke out against it, and now we're seeing what we predicted. So just check this out for a second. Okay. Good afternoon, committee members. My name's Oliver Bardwell. I live in Clyde. I'm a concerned business owner, and I'm with Let Them Play Iowa. Thomas Paine once said, "Those who expect to reap the blessings of freedom must undergo the fatigue of supporting it." And I want to honor all of you that are working tirelessly to protect our freedoms. I want to ask you this question: do we want to live in a society where our children and grandchildren are required to show their papers to be out in public, to go to a movie, to watch a baseball game? No passports, no exceptions. Please amend the bill to include further protections, as the current bill does not include. It doesn't apply to healthcare facilities. It doesn't address the IRS being utilized to confirm vaccination status, and it doesn't protect employees. I was talking to some. So it didn't protect employees, and it didn't protect people from going into medical facilities or medical care workers. And we talked about that, and we talked about, so many of us talked about how, it was going to cause a new form of legalized segregation. And that's what it's done, discrimination. And there was an argument made. Well, and this is kind of, this video is in response to Steve Holt's video. His video he put out today was fantastic. Somebody posted it on our page, and I watched it, and I thought he had a lot of incredible, relevant things to say. The one thing he didn't say was, "Hey, I'm sorry that we didn't support the amendments that Jeff Shipley put into place." Now, Jeff Shipley put in 2 amendments, or he proposed 2 amendments that would have completely fixed all these problems. I mean, they were amendments to take out the exemptions, basically, for employers and medical care facilities. And so now here we are, some months later, and everyone is up in arms about being discriminated against and being told they got to get the shot. And then if they don't get the shot, they have to wear a mask. And, the rules for quarantine are different for people that get the shot and don't get the shot. And some's paid, some's unpaid, et cetera. So thousands of people losing their jobs, thousands of people being coerced. And, I was looking on Steve's page today, and, they talked about, they thought that the free market would correct this. Well, how is it a free market situation when
the shot's paid for by the government. The manufacturers aren't paying for it. The government's paying for it. And it's not really the government, it's us. Our taxpayer monies are being taken so that we can give out this free shot. Propaganda, billions of dollars in propaganda and coercion. The manufacturers are not liable for damages. Employers are not liable for damages. Tell me how that's a free market situation. So you have the employee who's this big in that mountain of opposition, I guess, a mountain of opposition. You've got this employee, this Iowan that's this big, and they're going to say, "Oh, that's a free market situation. Just quit your job, get all your friends together and quit your job, and then they'll have to change their tune." Well, that's not a free market situation. So it never should have been considered a free market situation. Now they're realizing, oh, well, we thought the free market would adjust it. So now let's try to fix it. Okay, so there's a special session in October to redistrict Iowa. So if Iowans' cries are heard and they somehow manage to fix it, which I'm not sure how they're going to, how many thousands of jobs will have been lost? How many thousands of people will have been coerced? How many people will have been injured? It's hard to say. But I want to point out the lesson here. So, as my good friend Sonia has said, our Constitution doesn't say we the government. It doesn't say we the politicians. It doesn't say we big business or big pharma. It says we the people. So we the people have to step up when this legislation comes to the floor for, like a legislative committee hearing. When they first introduce it, we have to show up by the thousands and say, no, we the people do not want this. It can't be 100. It's got to be 1,000. And truly, how dedicated are you, and how to the cause of, how willing are you to say, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to quit this livelihood. I'm going to get my friends together. I'm going to talk to my fellow employees and say, hey, we're not going to do this. That's what they were supposedly expecting to happen. And it has happened. I mean, there are people standing up, but not enough. Not enough. And somebody mentioned that Jeff Shipley did a live yesterday, and he talked about this book, Letter from a Birmingham Jail. Sonia and I talked about this a week or so ago, and I read it right away. And ironically, yesterday morning, I was highlighting some things in it. And I just want to mention a couple things. So Martin Luther King Jr., while he was sitting in this jail for protesting without a permit, he said, in any nonviolent campaign, there are 4 basic steps. One is collection of the facts to determine whether injustices exist. And I think we've determined that huge injustices around this exist. 2, negotiation. I believe, negotiated. Amendments were entered in that would have solved this. Legislators have been emailed by the thousands. The governor has been called. We've had rallies and people have had amazing protests. That's not quite the negotiation. The negotiation, I guess, would be calling folks up, calling legislators up, trying to negotiate this and say, hey, we need to fix this. Self-purification. And what does that mean? That means being prepared. When he talks about self-purification, he talks about, they do workshops on nonviolence. Are you able to accept blows without retaliating? Are you able to endure the ordeal of jail? So are you willing to go to jail for your cause? in a non-violent manner. And then direct action, which would be, he said, sit-ins, marches, and so forth. And and some would say, well, isn't negotiation a better path? And he would say, you're quite right in calling for negotiation. Indeed, this is the very purpose of direct action. Nonviolent direct action seeks to create such a crisis and foster such tension that a community which has constantly refused to negotiate is forced to confront the issue. And so he talks a lot about creating nonviolent tension, which is necessary for growth. I don't know how much has been created. I mean, there's some medical groups, freedom groups that are doing protests regularly, and I'm sure that creates some tension, and that helps a lot. But how much more tension needs to be created? That's my question, I guess. And how willing are we to go as far as Martin Luther King Jr. went? He says, we have not made a single gain in civil rights without determined legal and nonviolent pressure. How many of you are filing civil rights complaints and civil rights violations? How many lawsuits are going on? That's legal pressure. So anyway, I just want to say that we need to stay strong. We need to continually apply pressure, whether it's emails, phone calls, protests, demonstrations, sit-ins, all those things, filing civil rights complaints, holding our legislators accountable for not doing the right thing in April. There's always talk of, oh, it wouldn't have gotten through if it wouldn't have included those exemptions. Well, I was reading something that I took some notes at a Gentry Collins talk, and he said that politicians way too often will they compromise so that they won't lose. They want their bill to pass, so they'll compromise. Instead of sticking to their values and building up momentum, they may lose this one time, but if they keep sticking to their values, eventually they'll win. And there was some debate about the bill needed to be struck down as it was. Maybe something else would have came up in its place, or maybe not having a bill that exempted these things would be better than having a bill that did. So anyway, the point of this, and I'm sorry if I sound a little less than serene about this, but we have to keep moving forward. We have to stand up. We have to say, hey, we're not going to comply. Your body, your choice, right? And there are so many nurses and medical care professionals and employees that are doing that, but there's just not enough. We need more people that are doing that, more people that are willing to take the risk of losing their job, and then they have to be vocal about it. So I don't have a great set of notes for this. I appreciate you listening and tuning in, and thank you to the 2,600 members that we now have, and to the moderators that are constantly reaching out to the new member requests and vetting everybody and making sure we have a great and safe group. I think we have 400 in the queue, and the moderators are still working hard. If sometimes your post doesn't get through, I apologize. I don't typically do that, but we're under such scrutiny and censorship that we're trying to, help people to understand that we want to post things that are more relevant, like the discrimination that's happening now, or things that are happening in Iowa, or things that are happening nationally that affect Iowans' freedoms, whether it's about shots or masks or discrimination or anything like that, or legislation that's coming up that we need to help with, or you know, demonstrations or events that are coming up. So let's keep it positive. Well, I mean, the best we can. Obviously, you know, it's a safe space, and if you're having struggles, we want to hear about it. And those aren't necessarily positive, but let's keep it on target. Everybody just dig deep. You know, our freedoms are God given. They're not given by the government. They're taken away by the government. There's a quote: "Freedoms can't be given; they can only be taken away." So we have to say, no, we're not going to have our freedoms taken away. Um, Martin Luther King Jr. said that any law that is unjust, we have the moral obligation to disobey any law that's unjust. That's any law, any policy, any mandate. If a law is unjust, it's not a law, right? I think he has so many good quotes in here. Yeah, it's worth a read. I wasn't sure at first, the first read through it, but the second read through it, I thought this is great for Iowans for Freedom, for anyone that's for freedom to read. We'll probably have a book discussion about it or something, but take a page out of Martin Luther King Jr.'s book. You know, freedoms from God. And in order to you know, our freedoms we prize, our liberties we will maintain, or our liberties we prize, our rights we will maintain. We have that motto in Iowa, and it's really a declaration, you know, that, and if you look at the preamble of Iowa, I want to point something out to you. Look up the Iowa Constitution here. In the preamble, it says, "We, the people of the state of Iowa," like I said before, not we, the government, not we, the politicians, not we, big pharma, not we, big business, we, the people, grateful to the Supreme Being for blessings hitherto enjoyed, and feeling our dependence upon Him for continuations of those blessings. Okay. We do ordain and establish a free and independent government. So, right in the beginning, the very first lines of the Constitution of Iowa, it's we the people, and we're grateful to the Supreme Being for our blessings, our freedoms, and our rights. That's who we have to answer to. All the rest is just the motions we have to make to maintain those freedoms. And God's got our back. The Supreme Being has our back. So that's the confidence that you need to walk into the battle with, and the peace. The Supreme Being is who we are grateful for, to our freedoms and our blessings. That's who we answer to, not the government, not legislators. They need to do what we want them to do. So we need to keep the pressure on. All right. God bless you. Have a blessed day.